Welcome to the SWIKE podcast, the only podcast that shares the stuff you didn't know you needed to know about jobs, careers, and life. The SWIKE podcast, the stuff I wish I knew earlier.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the SWIKE Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the podcast. And today we have our guest host, Marisa, we're going to talk about what does success mean to you? So for those that remember, Marisa has gone through the path of becoming a systems engineer to doing her MBA and is now running her own VA business. And we wanted to chat a little bit about success. So I pulled up the dictionary definition, and one of it was the accomplishment of an aim or purpose. So that sounds actually pretty simple. And if you think of that as success, that seems pretty straightforward. But for many, success is like $1 million, $1 billion, a nice title, a big house, a big car, or something like that, family, kids, and all that sort of stuff. And so there seems to be a slight disconnect between the definitions. But I'd love your perspective in terms of like going through your career journey. Have you even thought about success, or what was success to you when you were growing up, and then maybe now has that definition changed much for you?
Yeah, thanks, Luki. Yeah, I definitely had probably the more mainstream tradition, the mainstream vision of success, which is, I think, kind of instilled in us probably by our parents because they want us to, be self-sustaining, to grow up, to contribute well to society, and to be able to support ourselves and potentially our families. So I had always been very ambitious. So, like probably many of you, success while in school was getting the highest marks, so that you could get into the university you wanted, so that you could get the job you wanted, so that you could get promoted and have a really great salary coming in and support your family potentially. So that was always kind of probably at the back of my head. Also, in my family, having kind of a higher status position was also kind of encouraged. So my options going into university, luckily my parents were supportive of anything I did, but it was very highly encouraged when I said I wanted to go into engineering. And I got a lot of positive feedback from that versus any other potential career paths I had maybe mentioned being interested in.
So that's interesting. It sounds pretty similar to my own, where, yeah, I guess it was instilled by my parents. But as I think about it, I don't know if anything was explicitly said, right? It was kind of maybe the talks between like the uncles and the aunties, or whatever, what the cousins and the family friends were doing. That I think the first comparison point is what you said, the marks, right? My kids are getting A's, your kids are doing that. But from my perspective or my recollection, I don't know if my parents actually compared, although they did give me like a gift if I got a certain number of A's, that sort of thing. So there's definitely some motivation that was in there. But yeah, as I was growing up, I'm not sure where that idea of success actually came from. So if you were to kind of like dissect and rewind and say, well, where might it have come from? Like, can you think back a little bit more? Because then I'll try to do the same thing. But what are some areas where you think that those success of high grades, a very prestigious school, a good job, and then promotions and stuff, where do you think that came from?
I think it came from, like you mentioned, a lot of family. There would be a lot of like, oh, look at your cousin going to so and so school or getting such and such scholarship. And it's not necessarily that I didn't feel like I was like any less valued or loved, but I definitely saw that as, oh, maybe that's what they value, and maybe that's what I should be going after too. So yeah, just like you were saying with those comparisons, it's pretty subconscious, but over time, as children, I think, and young adults too, we even tend to gravitate towards what will get us more positive reinforcement. And so those were the things, getting high grades, applying and being interested in prestigious schools would always get the more reinforcement, I thought.
Cool. And then when did that shift? Because right now, obviously, you're off the traditional path where you're not in a job, you're not trying to get promoted. Although technically, you're CEO and president of a company, so you're doing pretty well from a title perspective. But yeah, when would you say for you that changed?
Yeah, I don't know if I can necessarily pinpoint it exactly, but something that resonated with me that someone had said was, um, recognize what game you're playing and if you actually want to be playing that game. So all throughout school, I'm playing the game of getting highest grades. And like, I loved playing that game. I loved, beating my other high achieving friends on whatever test. And like, that was fun to me. And getting into the school that I'd always dreamed about getting into, that was really exciting. But then afterwards, what's next? Like, is the game I want to play rising in an executive level position and potentially having not so great work-life balance? Like, I had to start thinking then, what game do I want to be playing? Will I like the outcome of winning that game? So, I've always been intrigued by being a leader in an organization. I've always been encouraged to be a leader in whatever organizations I've been in, but the responsibility that comes with that was not necessarily something that I actually wanted when I thought about it in the long run.
That's interesting. Yeah, I think for me, I guess I was too maybe naive, or I just didn't bother thinking about it because I guess I assumed, just like many, that's what's expected. So yeah, the game of getting good marks is one, right? I was okay at it. I was probably the best at it. In terms of the job, I don't think I was good at it either, right? I was just moving up, doing what I could, and that's probably why I progressed a little bit slower than some of the other folks. But I was just having fun and learning along the way. But I guess for me, where it started sinking in is that I was kind of at the cusp. So where I was a senior manager, and then the next step would have been partner. And I could see that like closer than the horizon, right? It was very tangible, and I could get it. And then for whatever reason, I kind of said, well, it's going to be a bunch of work to get there. And I think similar to yourself, like, do I actually want to do that? is that what I want to do? So I've climbed this far, and do I keep going, or is there something else? So then I did a bunch of kind of self-reflecting and thinking about what was really important, and then try to reevaluate that definition, because a lot of folks are on that same kind of hamster wheel, the conveyor belt or whatever, where they're going for the money, they're going for the titles, they're going for this and that. But if success, the simple definition is the accomplishment of an aim or purpose, right? So if your expectations are low, then you're successful, right? If your expectations are high, then you might not be so successful, right? And I guess it's one where it's up to folks to figure out what that perspective or what success is for them at this moment. So if you were to think for this moment for you, like, what is success? Because it's not like the promotions or getting to well, technically you're CEO, but what would be the kind of milestones or the achievement of success for you?
Yeah, for me, I started to realize that, and this is not a new idea, but that time for me is way more valuable than money. It's probably coming from a privileged background as well.
Sure.
I was never really seeking money as the be all end all, but yeah. So for me, in my business, I mean, right now I'm just starting out, so I don't really have that much time. I mean, I have time freedom in terms of I can work when I want to,
Sure.
but to achieve the goals that I have set out for my business, I mean, I'm still probably working 40 hours a week, if not more, because it's kind of an all-consuming thing. But I think for me, success would be I feel, I have a sustainable enough business so that I can, work however many hours I want to, and then also pursue other things and hobbies that aren't necessarily going to make me money, that I can volunteer and be of service to other people. So for me, it's more about enjoying the time you're given, because that's a limited resource, than necessarily the money.
Yeah, I think I would echo that I came to a similar realization. Again, I don't know if it's right, and I think it's individual for folks to make their own decisions. But at the same time, yeah, time is really the one true commodity, because you can always make more or get more of everything else pretty much. But time, unfortunately, unless someone has a time machine, once a second's gone, it's gone, right? So it's really optimizing that. But then there comes to, well, what you consider like wasting time. What does that mean, right? Because just by watching your favorite whatever Netflix or Disney Plus show or whatever, is that wasting time? Well, if you're thoroughly enjoying what you're doing, then I think it's not. That is one version of success, because you're meeting an aim or purpose, right? But if you're doing it because you're like aimlessly doing it, and that it just that's what's next and it's playing, and it just happens to be on, then that's not necessarily accomplishing any aim or purpose. So I think part of success is really knowing what that potential goal or destination is, right? So
Yeah.
taking a step back to say, like, do folks actually want that promotion, that job, that house, that whatever, or that time freedom that you talked about, right? Could you get that now by working a little bit less and earning a little bit less, but being able to do more with yourself, with your family, with your kids, or whatever? That's actually an interesting discussion to be had. And then for me, I think success is being able to do what I want, kind of when I want, and yeah, and I guess I don't have that complete freedom, but I believe that I'm doing stuff that I enjoy doing, right? So it gives me a sense of kind of fulfillment and purpose, and to me that's success. So I think another aspect of that is growth, right? Are you better today than you were yesterday, right? Um, so those are some things. And do you think that definition of success, or your view of success, is that what you think like inspired you to start your own business?
I'm not sure. I think so. Yeah. The sorry, can you repeat the question?
It was your changed definition of success. Is that what you feel inspired you to start your own business?
I think it definitely was kind of a simultaneous thing, not necessarily one being a catalyst for the other. I think naturally I was just like, I was evaluating my options when the pandemic hit. I could either go into the job search process, or I could start my own business. I had to make money some way. So when I thought about, working really hard in a really competitive job search to get a potential job, I wanted to really make sure that job was something I wanted, because I was going to be working really hard to try to get it. And when I thought about that, I was like, well, I don't know if that's what I want right now. I'm not saying that's not what I want ever,
Sure.
but right now that's not for me worth the effort of, the job search, which is a lot of work. Not to say that entrepreneurship isn't also a lot of work, but I can put the work in when I am passionate about what I'm doing. And for me, another part of success to me, what I found is when I'm aligned with the values that I've determined for myself. So some of my values, like you mentioned, are growth. And I thought there's really great growth opportunity in entrepreneurship. You get to decide basically what your goals are, what you want, how you want to develop, how fast you want to, and you are pretty much rewarded based on that. Sometimes the effort you put in is not necessarily rewarded in monetary, but I think that growth is still a huge part of the entrepreneurial experience. And that was one of my values, as well as service. And so being in a service-based industry was also a key part to me deciding what I wanted to do as well.
Cool. And did you actually take time to like sit down and write down these values and kind of come up with them and saying, okay, this is what's important to me? And like for the folks out there listening, is there like a template or resource that they could go to do the same thing? Or is it just something like in your head, you value it, and by no means are you doing it exhaustively, but you definitely want these types of things in what you do?
Yeah, so I didn't actually do this exercise before I started my business, but it was something that helped me persevere along my business and know that that was the right decision for me. And what I did was there was a worksheet that had basically like a list of values and definitions of potential values. And it asked you to fill out 10 spots for the 10 values that you had. And then kind of think about how those values played out in your own life, or how you weren't necessarily living up to those values, and thinking about what you could do to align yourself with those values.
Cool. So it sounds like that would be a useful exercise for anyone to do pretty much at any age, at any stage of their life. Maybe even earlier the better, where, I don't know, even in high school, if that was an assignment or a course or something to lay it out. I don't know if back then I would have been like mature enough to really think about it. And it's also one where I, as much as people probably say values stay the same, they probably differ in the sense of like priorities and stuff like that. Because obviously, as you get older, things like family may or may not be a priority at any given time, right? When you're whatever 16, it's probably not as much as when you're 20, getting married, and 30, about to have kids, or whatever those life stages happen. So those things will change over time. So I guess it's not only a useful exercise to do, but it's also a useful exercise to revisit to see what they are. And then those values will hopefully point you in the direction to what success is, what your goals are. And it sounds to me, based on this discussion, that a lot of it is really enjoying that journey, right? So it's not about these end goals and what you achieve, but it's like, am I doing stuff that helps me grow, that I'm of service? So those types of values, but whatever is the values that you support as well.
I'm not sure if like everybody, I think it might be a personality thing. Like I am very value oriented, but I think some people might not be. And I don't know if this is an exercise for everybody. And I think it really aligned with me because that's, part of my personality. And I think another point to what you said, that values could change. I was really worried about choosing 10 values right now because I'm like, I'm still young, I'm still evolving, but I think it's still important to, choose something for now and always know that you're going to be revisiting it, and it's okay if it changes.
Yeah, from what I understand, that values are always unconsciously there, whether you subscribe to them or not, whether you put them at the forefront or not. They're there. Sometimes they're a little bit more kind of that shadow versus the right up front. But I think it's probably a useful exercise. And if folks can't figure out what's important to them, well, that's probably a different problem that they have to resolve. But yeah, so if you were to think about success and telling kind of the younger version of Marisa and provide, I guess, a different definition or different perspective on success that might have put her on a different or similar path, is there anything that you would suggest to her?
I don't know if this is the answer you want, but I honestly wouldn't tell her anything because I think part of my values have just been shaped by, what I've done and where I was at. And like I think, like you said before, like if I was to tell high school Marisa, like, oh, just think about your values, I don't know if she would have really known what that meant really, or like what she would do with that. I think she's very goal oriented and getting into that university. And I think that was a good choice for her at that point in time.
Yeah, I think there's a time and place for a lot of things, and it might be one where you'll just have to go through kind of the trials and tribulations in order to be ready. The expression, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear type of thing, because it's probably, in high school, I had to do one of those exercises and I just forgot and I didn't even bother with it, because chances are, the careers course probably asks you to do that. But it's kind of like, I'll just write something just to hand it in. So maybe it's one where folks start to at least plant the seeds of what is success for you, right? And kind of let that simmer. And when you're ready to kind of explore the answer to it, to test kind of the conventional wisdom of, is it the graduation, the promotion, the titles, the cars, the money, and all that sort of stuff? Or is there something else to it? One of the things that I've been asked to talk about recently is a lot of things related to purpose, right? So purpose and success are quite aligned in terms of the I guess, discussion points. So it's a matter of figuring out, well, is your if you achieve your purpose, are you successful? It sounds like yes, based on the definition. So it probably stems back to that purpose. How do you find your aim and purpose, right? Is that something that you've been able to discover as of yet, or something that you're still on the journey to uncover?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm still uncovering it, and I liked, like you mentioned before, I like to think more of the process rather than just an outcome, because there's this illustration where two kids are in the car and they're driving to, say, Disneyland, and one kid is like, "Are we there yet? Are we there yet?" and is just frustrated the whole time. Whereas the other kid's like, "Oh my gosh, look at that cow over there," or "Look at that, sign. This city looks so cool." Like, and all along the journey, they're finding joy along the journey, and he still eventually gets to his destination. They all do, but he's able to. The kid who's observing what's around him is able to enjoy the journey more than the kid who's just waiting to get there. So for me, I don't necessarily think there'll ever be a point in my life where I'm like, I have found and achieved my purpose. I think it's always an evolving journey for me.
I think that's a great perspective to have. And for those that are really fussed about, what is my purpose? Do I need to become that doctor, lawyer, accountant, engineer, or the entrepreneur, or a non-traditional path, or whatever? It could be that's the case, or it could be that you'll find more information, you'll evolve, you'll grow, and life changes and life circumstances will dictate something differently. So yeah, I think that's some interesting discussion on success. Are there any other points or pointers or tips or tricks that you'd want to share with folks in order to kind of examine a little bit more of what success means to them?
One other exercise, I love exercises, but I found doing an anti-vision was helpful for me. So thinking about 5 years from now, what would you have done to make yourself not content with yourself in 5 years? So if you think about the different spheres of your life, financially, relationships, career, all of those different spheres, and think about, in 5 years, how would I be unhappy with this? And then you kind of reverse engineer that and say, what can I do today so that I don't end up like this person that I'm imagining 5 years from now? So I found that was kind of useful in figuring out, I guess, direction and purpose in that way.
Yeah, that's interesting, because a lot of the typical ones are imagine your dream life and exactly how you'd want it, up to the detail of like the feeling of the sheets under your as you wake up, that sort of thing. But this is different. Instead of finding what you want, it's what you don't want, and then obviously you still want to make the effort of finding or doing the things that you need to do in order to prevent that from happening. So it's still an active thing, but I think that's an interesting concept. So cool. So thanks for joining us on the discussion of success, Marisa, and hopefully we'll have you back for another episode on another interesting topic.
Thank you, Luki.
Thanks for joining us on the SWIKE, Stuff I Wish I Knew Earlier, the podcast. If you like the podcast, please subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you found this podcast. And if you can give us a review, that would be very appreciated. Feel free to contact me on LinkedIn at Luki Danu, LUKIDANU, and the same on most social media platforms. And I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks. Bye.